Hey, what's up guys? Jmann here with a video review of the SHODO versus Kamen Riders, at least Wave 1. These are candy toys. For a little bit of background, candy toys are tiny little action figures and things that you can find on basically the candy bar aisles of Japan. Each of these action figures also comes with a little piece of candy. These things are so addictive, so delicious. I just want to hoard them all and then just eat them all at once. But that's not a very healthy thing to do. So Kamen Rider candy toys, are nothing new. They've been around since forever, essentially. And even posable Kamen Rider action figures have been around for just about as long as I can remember. So I really hope that these SHODO Versus figures focus on Showa riders. As you can see, the first wave is Kamen Rider Ichigo, V3, X, and Apollo Geist. All of these are Showa characters, and I'll get into that, why I think they made that decision. But let's stop boring you with all of this stuff and actually start going through each one. Since most of these figures share the same basic body, I'm really going to go over the articulation and accessories in the box and stuff using Kamen Rider Ichigo here as reference, and then when each figure differs, I'll note that in their portion. But the first thing I'd like to talk about is these tiny little boxes. Like the newer... Come on, Ichigo. Like newer candy toys, you don't have to worry about them being blind boxed. They generally come with the figure that you're going to get plastered right on the front of the thing. So you don't have to worry about splitting a box with your buddies and trying to open up all of them at once to see who gets what and then split them up. You can see immediately who's going to get what right from the beginning. But, not really here to talk about boxes, especially since the best way to buy these are by the case, since you can really only buy these per figure if you're buying them from a reseller. If you're buying them straight from... if you're importing them straight from Japan, you're usually going to get them by the case, which means you're going to get 10 figures, and you're going to actually get 3 Kamen Rider Ichigos, 3 V3s, 2 X's, and 2 Apollo Geists. So if that, informs your buying decision, if you have a group of 4 friends who all love V3, one of you is going to be left out in the cold without one. But anyway, I'm going to actually talk about the figure now. The sculpt on this figure is actually fantastic. Way more than what I expected for a candy toy that retails for less than $5. And as I continue, you're going to see that you get so much value from this set. All of the details are sculpted in. You've got wrinkles. The belt is done nicely. Every aspect of the suit that should be there is there. And even the paint apps are way better than what I expected. For something that is less than $5, I expected them to be pretty sloppily done. And while there are a few little QC errors, like a little bit of black smudged onto the boot, or I guess rather that's green paint that didn't get painted all the way, and there's a little bit of mess on the back of the belt, for the most part, these figures are incredibly well done. And since I'm this close, I'll go ahead and start talking about the articulation. All of these figures have the same body. So you have a little ball-jointed head, can articulate pretty well, do whatever you want. The chest is really great on Ichigo. He has a lot of movement here. And it's a little hindered on a couple of the other figures, but I'll go over that in a bit. You have ball joints on the shoulders, bicep swivels, single jointed elbows, but they're fairly deep, and so they go more than 90 degrees. So, I'm not bothered by that at all, especially for the price point. And the gloves have swivels on the very end, but that's because they're also removable, so it makes sense that they would swivel. There is no wrist swivel. That is taken care of by the cuff of the glove. Once again, that is also kind of to be expected from something of this price range. But you have ball-jointed hips, So, I mean, you can kick all the way out. You can, go back a little bit. You can fully go out. You can totally do the splits if you wanted. But you also have full range of thigh articulation. And you only have a single jointed knee. But as you can see here, it is incredibly deep. So you really get the motion of a double jointed knee here. And you get a ball jointed ankle where the ball is sort of tilted a little bit. So the ankle gets some decent up and down movement, side to side, but mostly for a gorgeous pivot. Like, this is fantastic pivot joint. So it doesn't matter what pose you have him in, he can pretty much always stand flat-footed. And that's really the highlight of this toy line, is getting all of the figures posed the way you want to. Especially since they all also come with several sets of hands and even a little stand. You just pop them on the ankle like that. But you don't even really need them because the ankles are so good, they can pretty much stand up on their own without any assistance anyway. But it's still nice that they come with the stands anyway. But rather than this, I wish they would have come with like a mini Tamashii stage or something like an Assault Kingdom stand, because they do have peg holes in the back, and you can plug a Tamashii stage into it, and they stay pretty well. It's a little loose because it's a kind of a shallow connection, so they are a little swingy, but you can still get some pretty good rider kick poses. And that's pretty much the articulation and detail level you're going to expect from all 4 of these figures. So I'm going to start going over each individual things that make them all individuals. So Ichigo here comes with several sets of hands. He's got fists, his posing hands, and he's got calm hands, which is pretty much all he really needs. I wish he came with holding things hands so that he could grab onto bikes and such. Even though they haven't really done 1/18th scale rider machines, that's something that I'd like to see in the future. Like a future SHODO bike line or something like that. Them just do some little mini rider machines so we can have some Kamen Riders with their rides. But anyway, that's pretty much everything there is to know about Ichigo. So let's move on. Okay, the second figure in the line is V3. And V3 has all the same articulation points and level of detail that Ichigo had. So there is some great detail here, especially in the belt. I'm so surprised that they painted the V on the belt. I was expecting that to just be mostly blank, but that just shows you, the level of detail that they're putting onto these figures. I mean, there is a little bit of extra spray around the back of the belt, and there's some issues with like little scuffs and dings in the chest, and I actually have some paint smearing on the leg. There's some red paint there, but I mean, all these things are fairly minor, and for something this small, it's kind of to be expected. Even G.I. Joes have QC errors like that, and they're literally twice the price. But one thing that I should notice, that I should note, even though he does come with his posing hands, he can't really do his pose all that well. That's as close as his arms get, so you sort of have to turn him to the side and have him look if you're going to try and fake his pose. But that's a real shame. I wish they would have done something to allow V3 to do his iconic post-henshin pose, but that's really the only minor gripes that I have with him. He still retains all of the articulation that Ichigo had. His chest is kind of limited since he has these extra sculpted marks. He can't really move forward very much, but he can move backwards quite a bit. But everything else is completely unhindered, and this is such a stupid pose. I gotta do something different. But his scarves peg into the back of... There we go. They just peg into the back, but they peg in really solidly. I haven't had any issues with them popping off or anything like that. And as for accessories, he comes with not only his posing hands, but he also has calm open hands and fists, along with the stand, and he fits in it just as well as Ichigo, even though I'm making him fall over. Alright, and the third figure in the wave is Kamen Rider X. And he looks fantastic. He probably turned out the best out of all of the figures that I have. While they're all pretty great, I couldn't find a single flaw in his paint applications or anything. They're all sculpted really nicely, but he has like 0 QC issues, and that's pretty cool. Like the others, he has the same kind of articulation, because it's basically the same body, but his belt is really well sculpted. His chest is really well sculpted. Even his scarf is well sculpted. It's not painted, but I'm not really worried about them painting some soft plastic bits. The sculpt on the helmet is really nice. And I really love the shiny helmet. That's pretty accurate and awesome. The only downside to this figure is that the chest is really hindered because of the X. But that's really more of a design thing, if anything, because, you know, it does go back really far, but you can't really do anything going forward because it stops right here. I guess they could have, like, if they could have sculpted in the bottom part of the X and just left this as like a V or something, they could have had more articulation, but I think they cared more about the sculpt, and I kind of agree with that decision. You know, I don't really need him moving forward a whole lot. I just need him holding his staff and looking cool. But speaking of that staff, it's pretty cool. It's sculpted pretty well, even though it's just a staff. As you can see, it's got sculpted handles where you would put a human's hands on them, so, you know, X can easily hold on to them like he's supposed to. But, you know, everyone wants their Kamen Riders holding their staves in the middle, because that's the cool thing to do. And aside from his open hand and his grippy hand, he also comes with a pair of fists and a pair of posing double pokey hands. So I guess he can try and mimic V3's pose. Which, I mean, these are basically just repaints of V3's hands. But yeah, X basically comes with everything he needs. Plus, you know, fits in the stand so you can do weird stuff. So, you know, stands hold really well. That is such a stupid pose. And last but not least, we have Apollo Geist. Apollo Geist being one of the main villains of Kamen Rider X. And I'm pretty glad they did this. You know, there's so many toy lines where Bandai focuses so much on the riders themselves that they forget to add people for them to fight. Which is one reason why I think they do so many versus movies. So that even if they don't make villains, you can still make your Kamen Riders fight each other. But that is neither here nor there. I'm glad Kamen Rider X has an enemy. So, like the others, he is very well sculpted. He has a nicely sculpted belt. It's not painted behind him. I guess that's mostly because he's going to be wearing his cape, which looks really good and fits on his shoulders really well. I also love his helmet. His helmet is really well done. Of course, it's kind of hard to mess up Apollo Geist's helmet since it's, you know, a pretty simple helmet. But where he shines, he actually comes with his gun and shield. And forgive me for not remembering the names of his shield and gun, because it has been years since I've seen Kamen Rider X, and it was from a cheap bootleg Malaysian DVD set. But yeah, he's got a gun, and it's got 2 barrels. And that's cool. And he also has his shield, and both of these things have paint, and they're really well sculpted. But the weird thing is that they each have their own hands. For instance, I really thought this was just going to be a gun, and he would just have a gun holding hand. But no, this is an entirely one sculpted piece. So he is the only one who can hold his gun. It slots in. So that's a bit of a shame. And it's the same with his shield holding hand. When you pull the shield out, it just has 2 pegs that are sculpted into this hand. So there's really not much you can do with that. I mean, yes, you can, you know, plug these into the other figures, but their gloves are going to be wrong, the wrong color. Except X. Kamen Rider X could get away with it, and it wouldn't look that weird. except it would be Kamen Rider X holding a gun, which may have actually happened. Before I give my closing thoughts, I'll give why I think they decided to choose Showa riders over the newer Heisei riders. I mean, first off, they haven't really done any Showa-era riders in this scale. They may have done Kamen Rider 1 and 2 and V3 in the Motion Revive series, but I'm pretty sure they were only the versions from the first and the next. But probably the biggest reason is because if you can already see, the sculpts for the arms and the legs are completely identical. I mean, down to the boots, the pants, arms, gloves, every single thing is identical, except, of course, they have differently molded hands for the most part, but all of the fists are the same. You can swap out everything, and I think that was mostly to save costs, because I think if they're going to try out a line, since this is the first series, they wanted to make sure that it would sell, and the best way to make their money back in case it didn't was to not spend a lot of money on lots of different molds. So I really hope this line does well so we can get some really awesome different molds. I mean, not that, you know, these are bad in any way, and they can just keep going and doing Showa-era riders, and they can keep using basically the same arms and legs, and they can save money and also help me fill my shelf with 3 3/4 inch Showa riders. Overall, these figures are phenomenal. I mean, I cannot even think of a better value to dollar ratio than these guys right now. I mean, the paint apps that you get, the level of detail, articulation, accessories, everything about these figures is perfect. Like, you cannot go wrong by getting some of these guys. I mean, honestly, even if you paid extra money to get only the figures that you wanted, spending $10 or $11 a piece to get them shipped, instead of, you know, their retail price, which is 500 yen, I think you would still get your money's worth. These figures aren't just great budget figures or great value figures. These are just great figures. Even non-Kamen Rider fans will eat these things up, especially since they're in the scale of G.I. Joes. G.I. Joes, Marvel Universe, pretty much any 1/18th scale toy line, these guys will fit right in, which means if you have any really cool accessories, like boats and things, they can totally ride in them. So if you have accessories and characters from these other 3 3/4 inch toy lines, these Kamen Riders are going to fit right in. I just cannot express to you how much I love these figures. If we had a 10-point scale of rating action figures, these would probably be a 12 or a 13, especially for the price. I know I've said that so many times throughout the review, but these guys are less than $5 a piece. So I guess that's pretty much everything I can say about these guys. Just, if you can get these anywhere for pretty much any price, I mean, honestly, don't go, 15 or 20 bucks for a figure. That would be insane. But anywhere between $5 to $10, even at convention prices, you should be able to get these for around $8. For those prices, these figures are absolutely worth it, and I cannot recommend them enough. So, this has been Jmann. For the full written review, check out CollectionDX.com, and I will see you guys later.